Over a year ago, the Reddit anime community came together and created a list of 100 underrated anime. Since I love searching for and watching hidden gems, the list obviously intrigued me. This is the 7th installment of the Reddit Made Me Watch This anime series, where I slowly progress through each of the titles and state whether or not I think they are deserving of the title of underrated. In order to be considered underrated, the anime needs at least a 7.5 out of 10 rating. The previous 6 anime watched for the series have been about as good as you could hope for, with Reddit's record currently standing at 2 and 4. This makes Reddit's overall record 12 and 12, including everything watched before the start of the series. Next anime chosen from this giant list is ACCA 13, Territory Inspection Department, which is an interesting show that possesses a unique vibe that doesn't really match the situation within the show. But before I talk about that any further, let's summarize the series. ACCA 13 Territory Inspection Department is a political mystery show that is filled with twists and turns. The Kingdom of Doha for the past 100 years has experienced peace thanks in large part to the ACCA system. ACCA functions independently of Doha, overseeing a plethora of public services and smoking out any corruption before it can escalate. This anime follows Gene Otis, who is part of ACCA's inspection department. He is tasked with auditing each of the 13 districts of Doha for the next 6 months, all while rumors of a potential coup d'etat spread like wildfire. Each district is very unique, having a completely different culture and specialty from each other. For example, some are known for farming, while others gambling. While inspecting each district, Gene always feels the gaze of others, since he's deemed as a prime suspect behind the coup in some capacity. Little does Gene know that he's actually being used as a puppet, since the future of Doha is uncertain because of the king's old age. These audits are used to gauge each district's interest in Gene ascending to the throne, since he is of royal blood. By the anime's end, Gene, with the help of others, flips the script on the people using him and restores peace to the kingdom. I know why this was voted as an underrated anime. ACCA 13 has 3 things going for it: the art style, world building, and atmosphere created by the show. Being an anime done by Studio Madhouse, I was expecting to thoroughly enjoy the art from this anime, and I did. The world building in ACCA 13 is great as well. Now, to be fair, it should be its biggest strength, since so much time is dedicated to visiting each of the 13 districts and seeing their differences, struggles, and identifying factors that make them unique, essentially representing our world, but on a smaller island nation scale. These districts may be together in name, but that is it, and we see this through the lens of Gene Otis. There's clearly a divide, with some districts struggling more than others, and those with significant power wanting even more. I'm looking at you, Lilium. And finally, the thing I need to praise most from ACCA 13 is the atmosphere created by it. The creators definitely nailed that aspect. ACCA 13 created a unique, mature, and laid-back type of atmosphere in a political setting involving a coup d'etat, which was entertaining and what I'd say is the biggest contributor to this show's likability. Whether it was through the story, the actions of the characters, or the soundtrack, the vibe was not only matched in those areas, but those things helped to enhance the show. The atmosphere alone made this a unique show not comparable to anything I've ever watched. This political mystery thriller is entertaining solely for its atmosphere, which makes this at worst an okay watch for the viewer. Unfortunately, that's what this show is for me, just an okay watch. A show like this needs more than just a good vibe for me to consider it to be good. Other aspects like the characters and story need to help elevate this idea, and in ACCA 13's case, neither do that. In order to watch ACCA 13, patience is required, but the mystery should keep you interested enough in the show. The pacing is so ridiculously slow at the beginning, which will be off-putting for some people, and to some extent it was for me as well. If I actually practiced the 3-episode rule of dropping anime, I would have dropped ACCA 13 on episode 3. The story early on was so uneventful, and the characters so uninteresting, that even with me knowing where this anime was going with the plot, I didn't think it would be worth finishing it. I feel like this show holds you prisoner with the hope that at some point the story would explode with something interesting being revealed, but ultimately that never happens. Now, the story does slowly reveal things, and the pacing does get better, but the twists and turns ended up being extremely predictable, as well as the true antagonist's identity, making the payoff ultimately not worth the time I invested watching. Overall, the story falls flat, being uneventful and extremely predictable. It felt like the story was of secondary importance to the vibe created within the show. For a story about politics, the focus is never really on that. For whatever reason, smoking and talking about bread were the two most important parts of the show, and unfortunately, they were also the most memorable as well. That's not a good thing. Those scenes helped to build up that enjoyable laid-back vibe, but were ridiculously boring and monotonous, ultimately ruining the show since they were never needed. It felt like many of those scenes were completely unnecessary and repetitive, since so many other aspects, like the music, the actions of the people of Doha, and Gene Otis all did plenty to create the usually enjoyable atmosphere in the first place. If the emphasis of the series is going to be placed on atmospheric moments like smoking, then important story moments should be accompanied with them. I do want to point out that having cigarettes be the symbol of each district approving Gene to be the next king is a really cool attention to detail, but that was the only interesting mystery, if you can even call it that, throughout the show. Remember earlier when I said that the vibe doesn't match the situation? Yeah, when a coup d'etat is occurring, being this relaxed or laid back, especially for ACCA employees, a group whose job it is to stop such things, doesn't match the situation at hand. You expect the people from ACCA to be working overtime to quell the rumors, but not in the case for most of the higher-ups, besides Mauve. Apparently nobody besides Gene does their job, and that applies to the assassins sent after him and his sister Lotta the most. Those assassins are horribly inept at their job, which unintentionally made this show hilarious, and no, that's not a positive thing here. In order for this laid-back vibe that doesn't fit this coup d'etat mystery scenario to be a success, there needs to be interesting characters as well, especially when it comes to the lead Gene Otis, and for ACCA 13, that is simply not the case. Gene, the main character, smokes a lot, which is the most notable thing he does throughout the show. I would not be surprised if the number of times he lit up a cigarette was over 100 throughout the anime. Gene acts like a husk of a human, never showing any interest in just about everything that occurs in the show, being a straight-faced, uninterested party, which in turn makes this show uninteresting. Outside of him being flustered by his superior Mauve, Gene is robotic in both his actions and attitude. He felt human around Mauve and even a bit towards his sister, and I would have liked to see a bit more of that from him throughout the story. I assume the reason why his demeanor is like this is to showcase that he'd make a good ruler, since he is of royal blood, and he doesn't let his emotions get in the way of his work. Combine this with his seemingly apathetic attitude, which masks the fact that he always tries to do right by the people in the various districts he audits, and you're looking at a potentially good ruler, somebody that'll help facilitate the change needed for this kingdom. However, Gene's uncaring attitude never fooled me. Gene showcased right away that he never wants to ascend to the throne, making ACCA 13's ending extremely predictable as well as uneventful. It's not just Gene either. The characters are the biggest weakness of ACCA 13, being extremely unremarkable, flat, and dull. The exceptions to this were Nino, Mauve, and Lotta. Nino was the best character, adding some mystery to the anime, as well as somebody who's actually interesting, but lost that immediately after his predictable motives were shown. Mauve seems to be the only higher up to be actually doing her job, and Lotta's positive attitude and cheerfulness was a welcome sight in a show filled with flat, uninteresting characters who largely seem uninterested in this situation around them. Even those three characters I mentioned aren't anything special, but they were at least a breath of fresh air compared to the copy-paste boringness of everyone else. Instead of characters being built up within this series, far too much time was dedicated to boring moments within ACCA 13, such as Gene's smoking habit, his audits, and the talk of sweets. If I had to summarize, ACCA 13 is a largely boring, slow burn story with good world building as well as an enjoyable art style and vibe. Overall, it is an idea that never left an impression on me, since neither the characters nor the story are good within it. It is a series with wasted potential. That's why my rating falls into the I didn't mind it, but man, it could have been much better range. I give ACCA 13 Territory Inspection Department a 5 out of 10. It's yet another anime where I can understand why people like it, since for some people it excels in something, which makes them consider it underrated, but it doesn't reach that same level for me. Reddit's overall record is now 12 and 13, which also means that I have finished 1/4 of the underrated anime list. Reddit's record also moves to 2 and 5 for new anime for this series. Thanks so much for watching. There's still plenty of anime to go through for this series, so subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next video.